All right. Chapter, what is this? 22? Whatever. Page 744 in the London Standard, August 20th. There is a description of them. They all seem to be much larger than common ladybirds of a paler color with more spots. In the field, August 28th, someone writes that all the insects except a few were yellow. So far as he knew, he had never before seen specimens of this species, the editor of the field writes. The red is paler, and there are divers slight differences that rather indicate a foreign origin. He says that in the opinion of Mr. Jenner Weir, the naturalist, these ladybirds were different from ordinary English specimens. These millions must have been very ordinary somewhere, that there are data for thinking that these insects came from neither France nor Belgium, such as hosts of observations upon the swarms within a mile or two of the English coast, and no findable record of an observation farther away or nearer France. There is, in newspapers of Paris, no mention of appearances of ladybirds anywhere upon the continent of Europe. There is no mention of in publications of entomological societies of France and Belgium. But any of these enormous clouds leaving a coast of France or Belgium would have attracted as much attention as did an arrival in England. Other scientific publications in which I have searched without finding mention of observations upon ladybirds in France or any other part of the continent are Comtes Rendus, Cosmos Petits, Novalis, Entomologiques, Rev et Mag de Zoologie, La Science pour tous, La Abel Bib Universelle, and Reverend Cur Sci in Galamanani's Messenger, Paris. Considerable space is given to accounts of the invasions of England by ladybirds, but there is no mention of observations anywhere except in England or within a mile or so of the English coast. This is the way an investigation began. A great deal was written about conditions in the invaded land. Probably the scarcity of insects in England was unprecedented. There was no drought. It is simply that the insects had died out and billions were coming from somewhere else. Where's that? Margate overwhelmed. In the field, August 28th, a correspondent writes, on Wednesday 25th, I went to Ramsgate by steamboat, and as we approached within 5 or 6 miles of Margate, complaints of wasps began to be heard. I soon ascertained that they were not wasps, but bee-like fly. But a bee-like fly. As we neared Margate, they increased to millions, and at Margate they were almost unendurable. Some specimens were sent to the editor of the field, and he identified them as Saifi. There had been a similar multitude at Walton on the coast, about 30 miles north of Margate, the day before. The little band of scouts at Ashford, they carried lanterns, then green processions, yellowed multitudes, the military-looking seraphi costumed like hussars. A pilgrimage was on. Thunderbugs appeared between Wingham and Adisham. The tormented people of the region said that they had never seen anything of the kind before. Wasps and flies in overwhelming numbers besieging Southampton. London and arriving point. The descent of crane flies upon London, doorsteps and pavements looking muddy with them, people turning out with buckets of boiling water, destroying multitudes of them. This is one of the ways of treating tourists. I think that there is a crowd psychology of insects as well as of men, or an enjoyment of communicated importance from a crowd of millions to one of the bugs. They were humming to England, not merely with bands playing, but each of them blowing some kind of a horn of his own. There are persons who would be good if they thought that they could go to heaven, or so swarm in the sky with millions of others all tooting saxophones. Pilgrims or expeditionaries or crusaders. It was more like a crusade, with nation after nation or species after species pouring into England to restore something that had been lost. In Psyop 3-261 is an account of a new insect that appeared in England in July of this year, 1869. For the accounts of other unknown insects that appeared in England in this summer, see the Naturalist Notebook 1869-319. Sygos 1870-141, Ent Mo Mag 1869-86, and February 1870, PSYOP 2-359. It was a time of mysterious strangers. In the Times, August 21st, someone noted the absence of small white butterflies and wondered how to account for it. In the entomologist Newman wrote that upon July 12th he had seen of this ordinarily abundant insects only 3 specimens. Upon pages 313 to 315, half a dozen correspondents discussed this remarkable scarcity. In the field, September 4th, someone told of the astonishing scarcity of houseflies. In more than 6 weeks at Axminster, he had seen only 4 flies. London Standard, August 20th, that at St. Leonard's on Sea, all insects except ladybirds and black ants were few and far between. In Simmons' Met Mag, August 1869, it is said that at Schniffel, scarcely a white butterfly had been seen, and that up to July 21st, only 1 wasp nest had been found. Correspondents in the Entomologist, September and October, mentioned the scarcity of 3 species of white butterflies and noted the unprecedented fewness of beetles, bees, wasps, and moths. Absence of hornets is commented upon in the field. July 24th, they were pouring into England. An army of beetles appeared in the sky. At Ullswater, this appearance was a military display. Regiment after regiment for half an hour passed over the town. The spiders were coming. Countless spiders came down from the sky into the city of Carlisle, and at Kendal, 35 miles away, webs fell enormously. About the 12th of October, a vast number of streamers of spiders, web and spiders came down from the sky. At Tiverton, Devonshire, 280 miles south of Carlisle. See the English Mechanic, November 19th, and the Tiverton Times, October 12th. As if in one persisting current, there was a repetition. Upon the morning of the 15th, webs like pieces of cotton fell from the sky at South Molton near Tiverton. Then fell wondrous quantities, and all afternoon the fall continued, covering fields, houses, and persons. It was no place for flies, but to this webby place flies did come, species after species. It was like an internationalism of better-known crusades. The locusts were coming. Upon the 4th of September, a locust was caught in Yorkshire. There are no locusts indigenous to England, at least up to May 1895. No finding of a locust in its immature state had ever been recorded in Great Britain. Upon the 8th and 9th of October, locusts appeared in large numbers in some places in Pembrokeshire, Derbyshire, Gloucestershire, and Cornwall. They had the mystery of the ladybirds. They were of a species that, according to records, had never before appeared in England. An entomologist writing in the Journal of the Plymouth Institute 4-15 says that he had never heard of a previous visit to England by this insect. It seems that in all Europe, this species had not been seen before. In the Ent-Mag 7-1, it is said that these locusts were new to European fauna and were mentioned in no work upon European Orthoptera. At the meeting of the Entomological Society of London, November 15, 1869, it was decided after a discussion that the ladybirds had not come from France, but had flown from places in England and had been carried back by winds to other parts of England. There was no recorded observation to this effect. It was the commonplace ending of a mystery. I add several descriptions that indicate that, in spite of London's most eminent bugmen, the ladybirds were not English ladybirds. Inverness Courier, September 2nd, that they are foreigners, nobody doubts. They are nearly twice the size of the common English birds and are of a paler color. See the Student 4-160. The majority were of a larger size and of a dull yellow hue. In the London Standard, August 23rd, it is said that some of the insects were almost half an inch long, that the locusts were foreigners was by the I can never say this word, Ethnomological Society of London not discussed. Nothing else was discussed. Crane flies and safari and spiders and all the rest of them, not a mention. I know of no scientist who tried to explain the ladybirds and mentioned locusts. I know of no scientist who tried to explain the locusts and mentioned ladybirds. No scientist who wrote upon a scarcity of insects and mentioned the swarms. No scientist who told of swarms and mentioned scarcity. The spiders, in a localized fall that lasted for hours, arrived as if from a persisting apparent point over a town, and the ladybirds repeatedly arrived as if from an appearing point a few miles from a coast. The locusts came not in one migration, but as if successfully along a persisting path or current, because several had been caught more than a month before large numbers appeared. A mob from the sky at Burnt's Island, Scotland, spinning jennies that were making streets fuzzy with their gatherings on cornices and windowsills. An invasion at Beccles was an experience without precedent. A war correspondent tells of it in the Gardener's Chronicle, September 18th. The invaders were gnats, correspondents trying to write about them from an ink pot filled with drowned gnats, people breathing and eating gnats, near Reading, clouded yellow butterflies, insects that have never before been recorded in Berkshire appeared. At Hardwick, many bees of a species that was unknown to the observer was seen. Field, August 21st, and November 20th, swarms of hummingbird hawk moths, as described in Science Gossip 1869-273. There was at Conway a wonderful sight, a flock of hummingbird hawk moths and several species of butterflies. Clouds of insects appeared at Battersea Park, London, hovering over trees in volumes so thick that people thought the trees had been set afire. An invasion at Tiverton, seemingly coming from the spiders. A marvelous swarm of black flies made its headquarters upon the town hall, covering the building, turning it dark inside by setting upon the window glass. At Maidstone, as if having arrived with the ladybirds, a large flight of winged ants was seen. Midges were arriving at Inverness, August 18th. At some points, the cloud was so dense the people had to hold their breath and run through. Thripes suddenly appeared at Scarborough, August 25th. At Long Benton, clouds of thrips descended upon the town, wafting into houses. There they were dusted from the walls and swept from the floors. Also at Long Benton appeared an immense flight of the white butterflies that were so scarce everywhere else, gardeners killing thousands of them. At Stonefield, Lincolnshire, appeared beetles of a species that had never been seen before. It was more than a deluge of bugs. It was a pour of species. It was more than that. It was a pour on a want. Etymologists record 1870 that in this summer of 1869 in England there had been such an insect famine that swallows had starved to death.